What is up? My name is Jake, and this is Bottom Line. And what is that? Move over, Liquid IV. There's a new hydration in town. LMNT. It is different from Liquid IV though, and they let you know this up front. This isn't necessarily for everyone. At this point, LMNT has made its way across the supplement landscape. There's a high likelihood you've probably already seen it. But have you ever wondered, is it worth it or worthless? Let's get into it. Let me give you some background about the company LMNT. And yes, it's spelled LMNT. You say it LMNT. Kind of clever. It's hard to come up with company names that aren't already taken, so they did good there. LMNT was founded by a guy named Rob Wolf. He's a former research biochemist, New York Times bestselling author, and one of the pioneers of the paleo movement. The idea for LMNT was born out of his deep dive into nutrition and performance, particularly the importance of electrolytes for hydration, energy, and overall health. So the problem he found was many health-conscious individuals, especially those following low-carb, keto, or fasting protocols like intermittent fasting, were experiencing electrolyte imbalances that come along with those. So it would lead to headaches, fatigue, muscle cramps, and ultimately poor performance. So the solution Rob and his team came up with is that they had recognized most hydration products were too high on sugar and not high enough on sodium, potassium, and magnesium, the key electrolytes that our bodies actually need. So what did he do? He created LMNT Recharge, a zero sugar, high electrolyte product with a science-backed ratio of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium per serving. And at first, they had a lot of grassroots growth. The product gained popularity among athletes, people who are doing low carb or keto diets, following intermittent fasting, and in general, just really active people who are focused on their performance. So it was initially shared in Rob's community, the paleo community, and then later grew into a major hydration brand. It's up there with Liquid IV and some of the others who have really grown in hydration. So let's talk about why LMNT is different than some of those others that I've mentioned, Liquid IV being the obvious one. So what makes LMNT unique is 1, no sugar, 2, no artificial ingredients, 3, no fillers. It also has very high sodium content, 1,000 milligrams. Now that might make some people, especially heart doctors, go, ah, because most electrolyte products do not have sodium content that high. But there's a reason for that. A lot of hydration products on the market underdose sodium. C Prime literally has none. That's another video. But LMNT has high sodium content. It's actually double the amount that Liquid IV has in their product. Also importantly, I mentioned, they tell you up front, this is not necessarily for everyone. It's designed for people who are on low carb, keto diets, athletes, those doing intermittent fasting, more active than your average person. That's what separates LMNT from some of these other brands. And we'll get into why sodium content is important when you're talking about a very active lifestyle. But it doesn't have to only be used in active lifestyles. I'll share some personal experience where this has been helpful for me. LMNT has definitely had a lot of success and popularity over the last 5 years or so. You've probably seen it on podcasts, YouTube videos. It's everywhere. And it's become a really trusted electrolyte brand. Likely you've seen, elite athletes, biohackers, and health experts worldwide support LMNT. Because it's a simple product, they have a specific science-driven goal behind the formula here, which allows it to stand apart from others in the hydration industry. So let's dive into electrolytes. You've probably heard of electrolytes. Even if you're not a super active person, you probably know what they are or could name a few of them. Let's name them. Here specifically in this product, we're talking about sodium, potassium, and magnesium. But there are other electrolytes. These are just the heavy lifters. So what do electrolytes do? Electrolytes are minerals that carry an electric charge and help regulate essential bodily functions. The main electrolytes in the body include sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, bicarbonate, and phosphate. Their primary functions include, number 1, hydration balance. Electrolytes regulate the body's fluid levels. Number 2, nerve function. They help transmit electrical signals in the nervous system, which allows for proper communication between our brains and our muscles. Number 3, muscle contraction. Electrolytes play a critical role in muscle contractions, preventing cramps and weakness. If you're into sports like I am, how many times have you seen professional athletes, college athletes, whatever it may be, cramp up? Electrolyte imbalances. And those could really hurt if you haven't experienced that before. Number 4, pH balance. They help maintain the body's acid-base balance, keeping blood pH levels stable. Number 5, blood pressure regulation. Electrolytes balance blood pressure by influencing fluid retention, as we talked about. And number 6, cell function and metabolism. So electrolytes support enzymatic reactions and energy production in our cells. What does all that mean? Bottom line, when electrolyte levels become too high or too low, it can lead to dehydration, muscle cramps, irregular heartbeat, confusion, or even more severe health issues. Proper hydration and a balanced diet help maintain the optimal electrolyte levels we need in our bodies. It can get serious if you're really dehydrated, which is why proper hydration and a balanced diet are key to making sure we keep our electrolytes in check. So let's talk about who should be using LMNT. I already mentioned that it obviously makes sense for people who are following a low carb, keto diet, people who are doing intermittent fasting, or people who are super active. What it's also super helpful for, I've found in my own experience, is specifically when I get sick, like if I get sick with the flu. I had norovirus not that long ago. I could not keep anything down. It was fucking terrible. The whole family had it. Everybody's puking into buckets on the toilet. Not a great situation. That's when I pulled out my LMNT because I want it to have higher sodium levels and other electrolyte levels, because when we're sick, we're losing all of the liquids out of our bodies. And then we're talking about those basic health things that we need electrolytes to balance. Because if you've been sick like that before and you're getting dizzy and you're feeling even more nauseous, ultimately, when you go to the hospital and they give you fluids, you're providing a similar thing here where you're getting your electrolyte levels back to baseline, which is so important when you are losing fluids. I know when I'm sick, that's when I'm pulling it out, because I'm going to be dehydrated. Or when I'm traveling, particularly like air travel, that can really dehydrate you as well. It does me. But really just in general, when I travel, I'm a person who, I'm one of these basic that carries around a Stanley all the time, even before Stanleys were cool, I will say. Remember back in high school when all the jocks would carry around the jug of, the gallon jug of water bottle? I guess we've kind of upgraded there, but we've also stepped up from just trying to drink a gallon of water. Not that that's a bad thing, but we can be a lot more direct when we're using electrolyte mixes like this. So for me, when I'm sick, when I'm traveling, or if I've just had a hectic day, it's funny how I really notice my hydration levels suffer with all of those things. Maybe you have too. LMNT we talked about the sodium content being pretty high. So guess what? It's gonna taste really salty. That's why there's a lot of salt in there. If you taste a liquid IV, it's about double the amount of sodium that liquid IV has. Liquid IV is salty as it is. So when you're going to LMNT, it's gonna be really salty. It's not going to be your perfect fit if you just want some basic everyday hydration. In general, you're really hydrated. But it's actually over 70% of people who are chronically dehydrated. So even if you weren't aware that you're dehydrated, pay attention to some of these signs, because you could be dehydrated and not even realize it, which is why I personally focus so much on my hydration for just general health and wellness. LMNT is a bit pricier than, say, a liquid IV or other competitors, but it's because it has higher levels of sodium, so that costs money, but it's actually not so much more expensive that it's a detriment. And they have different pack sizes you can get. But let's talk about signs of electrolyte deficiency. Well, here would be some obvious things: constant fatigue, even when you're getting enough sleep, brain fog, headaches, and muscle cramps. If you're dealing with those all the time, you might really need to look at your hydration. You may not be hydrating like you need to be. And products like this make it really easy to stay on top of it. Low sodium diets can be harmful for your hydration. Sodium in the past has kind of gotten a bad rap, and you're starting to see that change quite a bit, where more studies are coming out showing that higher levels of sodium are not only not a bad thing, but it can be a really good thing, specifically as we're talking about here with hydration. Now, I've mentioned athletes, keto dieters, intermittent fasters. In general, when you are living a lifestyle like that or consuming a diet like that, you just need more electrolytes. The body requires more electrolytes. So how do you get enough sodium, potassium, and magnesium daily? Well, we talked about balanced diet. That's important. The basics, good sleep habits, and then making sure you're drinking plenty of water. And then when that's not cutting it, that's where these supplements really step in. Let's go back through the history a little bit, because I know for me growing up, whenever I thought of hydration, I didn't know any better. I just thought Gatorade. And I look at that now, and Gatorade is such trash. Like, it has so much sugar in there, like way more sugar than we need for a sports drink. And the electrolyte levels are not even high. So we kind of started back then with, I would say, the precursor to all these kind of products. And they were trash. And then if you have kids, you're probably familiar with Pedialyte. That was another one that came out afterwards that was geared more toward kids. But then ultimately, Liquid IV was kind of the first brand that came along and branded the hydration market. I mean, they've done an incredible job, grew really fast, were sold to Unilever for billions of dollars. They're still killing it. They're still a market leader. But LMNT is different than each one of those because we've talked about no sugar, high sodium. We know now why that's important for hydration. And that's why it's so popular in the keto and fasting communities and athlete communities. Because when you're doing those things, you're sweating more. And personally, I find that if you're not having consistent hydration issues, LMNT, it might be more than you really need. Unless you're following one of those diets, or unless you're a super active person, LMNT might be overkill, except in certain situations, such as when you're sick, when you're traveling, or in general, when you just know, oh, I have not been keeping up on my hydration today or this week. What I personally love about LMNT is the no sugar, because when a Liquid IV came out, first of all, they didn't have sugar-free options. They made having sugar in it part of their message of why the product worked well. And there's some science around it that says, yeah, having sugar in the product can help, but I think that science is really overblown of why you need sugar in your hydration product. Can it make it more effective with absorption? There's some evidence there, but in reality, I'd rather just not have the sugar. And when Liquid IV first started, they only had sugar versions. So I didn't want to consume the sugar there. So when LMNT came along and then other competitors that were sugar-free, that was a win. High electrolytes, obviously we talked about that. Super high sodium content, double of what most competitors are doing. It's awesome for workouts, intro workout, after workout. I know for myself, when I'm working out, I sweat a lot. I sweat like a pig, a sweaty boy. I found that once I incorporated hydration products, specifically high electrolyte blends like this, high sodium, it totally changed my workouts and then how I recovered after. I was definitely not hydrating enough. I like to go pretty hard in the gym, but I also sweat a lot when I'm in the gym, so you've got to replace that. And while, yes, water can do that, you're going to have the effect faster by, consuming a high electrolyte product like this. But the one caveat here is there are some people who need to stay on a low sodium diet. This product's not going to make sense for them. There's a lot of sodium in it. Trust your doctor on that if they've told you don't consume that. It is a bit more expensive than your traditional hydration product. And, for some people, maybe they don't have as many flavors options as they would like maybe Liquid IV has, and it's going to taste saltier because there's a lot more salt in it. So don't use LMNT if you have certain health conditions. Listen to your doctor there. I think the best way to use it is before, during, after workouts, before bed, when you're fasting. If you're looking at this and you're like, okay, I see the benefit, maybe I don't totally need that. There are other brands out there that are more affordable, less sodium content, but LMNT really fills this niche really well. I've talked about keto and low carb a bunch at this point now. There's a reason, because electrolytes are super important, essential when you're fasting. Helps you avoid keto flu, fatigue, and headaches. Those are all things that come along with keto, low carb, or fasting diets. LMNT helps you there because there's no sugar, it's not going to break your fast, and then it's supplying the electrolytes. If you're doing intermittent fasting and you're super strict about it, you're worried that, is the natural flavor in LMNT going to affect that? If you're worried about that, to be safe, just consume the non-flavored versions. They have those. Some people say that natural flavors or stevia can trigger cravings for them. I think that's on a case-by-case basis. It's not supposed to break your fast when you're using these. For some people, they say it can trigger cravings for them when they consume flavored versions. And I'm sure there are cases of that. But in general, it's not going to break your fast. LMNT does have a bunch of different flavor options, so check those out. What is really cool about LMNT, and I noticed this the first time I looked it up when I started hearing people talking about it. I looked on the website, looked at the product, looked at the flavors, and there's even a link on the website that tells you, okay, if this is too expensive, you don't want to buy it from us, here's how you make it yourself. I just think that's so cool. Obviously not in the company's best interest to tell you how to do that, but they're still doing that because they believe in the concept. Most companies are not going to do that. So kudos to LMNT for doing that. I think that's awesome. And LMNT is not cheap. It's about $1 per serving in stick packs. The reason for that though is you have obviously the product cost, you have packaging cost when they're individually packaged, that adds the cost to go up. But if you want to DIY and do LMNT yourself, go on their website using salt, potassium, and magnesium. You can buy those individually and they tell you how to mix it up and make your own LMNT. So if you don't want to pay it for the convenience factor of that, totally get it. make it yourself. For myself, I love the convenience factor of grabbing a pack or two or whatever when I'm traveling or at the gym. It's super convenient. For me, it's worth it to pay for that. So, bottom line, worth it or worthless? Worth it. Yay! This product is worth it to me. I think LMNT has done a great job of coming into the hydration market where there was already a market leader, Liquid IV, and having it different enough that appealed to a different demographic of people who are really active, not your everyday hydration kind of people. They've built a great transparent brand, even to the point where they tell you how to make it at home yourself. I think that's awesome. And they've carved out a great niche for themselves in the hydration market with a great company, science-backed formula, and electrolyte levels. So, what do you think? Have you tried LMNT? If so, what are your favorite flavors? Leave it in the comments below. Are there other electrolyte brands that I should try and you'd like to hear me review those? If so, again, let me know in the comments. I hope this has been helpful and entertaining. Thanks for watching.